What's the dumbest mistake you've seen an incompetent coworker make? I used to work for a landscaping company, and over the course of a summer I witnessed one of my coworkers accidentally set 3 different things on fire: a hedge trimmer, a truck, and himself. I knew a dude that printed almost 1,000 pages of counterfeit dollar bills for a joke or prank. The boss walked in immediately after and wound up behind the back area of the business throwing it all into the burn barrel, getting rid of it. Dude didn't last much longer than that. A new veterinary technician did a dog analgland expression with her face directly behind the dog. But Dotton got sprayed in the face. She threw up and had to go home early. He parked in the CEO's reserved parking space, a clearly defined area, and was surprised at the end of the workday to see that his car had been towed. Had a temp that was difficult to train. She didn't have a log-in, so had to use mine, including my email, for comms, which she used to bitch about me to a colleague sitting right next to me, 'cause I had to tell for 100th time how to do something. How did she not realize I would see those emails? Exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. Trying to be friends with the kids. Exclamation mark, exclamation mark. I'm a middle school teacher. Took the wrong coffin to a funeral. Someone else had to drive to the cemetery with the correct deceased on board. And thankfully they made it before the viewing. My dad was a correctional officer back in the day. Growing up in Eastern Europe, there was a punishment there called mucking that some smaller offenders chose over a permanent record, where they were taken to a pig barn, cuffed in a corner, manure was shoveled over them, and they were left to think about their actions. My father told me about how once he and his coworker misread the disciplinary paperwork and gave someone a 2-hour sentence when it was supposed to be 12, and only realized afterwards. They didn't tell anyone to avoid getting fired. I'm sure the offender was quite thankful, as my father said he was already well past the point of puking and begging. But the victim didn't get the justice they thought they were getting. In the chemistry lab, he forgot all safety measures while handling a cancer-causing oxidizer, endangering a lot of people near his workstation. I worked with a guy who cut the grass on the greens of an entire golf course with the mower blade off, rolling on the floor laughing. I worked grocery for 12 years, and one day I get an in-house page if I could come to the receiving dock. I worked produce to assist the grocery manager. We had just got a grocery load in, and the driver hadn't used a load lock, a bar that goes across the truck if it's not a full truck. And we had 9 full pallets of product toppled over and broken. My job was to take pictures on my cell phone of the mess, and the grocery manager called up our distribution center to inform them of what happened. We had to take the keys to the truck away from him as he was fired on the spot, and he had to find his own way home. And it was a 4-hour drive home from our store. The whole time he was bitching that he wasn't his fault, that they can't force him to supply his own load lock as he was an independent contracted driver. He did about $10,000 worth of damage to product, lost his job, and any future possibilities at driving a big rig for anyone in the state, because he didn't want to buy a piece of equipment that cost $50, or even worse, he didn't ask our warehouse for one, which they would have happily loaned him one. He'd be fined if he didn't return the lock back after his run. Emptying hot fryer oil into a plastic container. Guess how that went? My coworker was reasonably competent but needed to write down instructions for everything that they didn't do every single day, but was also terribly unorganized. One time I was called over to help, and so I walked them through the process, and they wrote down the Directions on a sticky note. When searching for a place to put it because their walls and monitor bezels were completely covered. In notes they decided that this one spot on the monitor was best, so they took off the sticky note that was already there, and realize it was literally the instructions from the last time I taught them how to do it. I work in a restaurant, so we have a high turnover of part-time staff. This results in some seriously questionable hirings, but a few months ago we had a particularly bizarre fellow. Plenty of stories about him, but the one I just can't my head around is when we caught him stealing ice cream mix. It's a soft serve machine. Think Mr. Whippy style. And he was rather fond of a cone or two of it. Anyway, he wasn't the sharpest lens in the bag and got caught stealing a couple of cartons of the ice cream mix. God knows what he was planning on doing with it. Drinking it? Or knowing him, maybe he thought he could plant them in the ground and grow an ice cream tree. I used to work as a pharmacy tech. Most antibiotics for kids come as powder in a bottle. We add distilled water to make it liquid upon receiving prescriptions, as the solution only remains stable for 10 to 14 days, depending. One day, a father drops an amoxicillin prescription for a child. Usual questions are asked: age, weight, allergies, type of infection, desired flavor. Product is prepared and given to the father. He leaves. 2 hours later he comes back. Says the medication smells funny. I think, duh. Medication often do. But I still waft the scent with my hand to my nose and, he's right. Something is off. I give the bottle to the pharmacist, he agrees and makes another bottle right away. The original antibio bottle smelled like straight-up alcohol. In a lab, we keep multiple solvents for many use: water, simple syrup, mineral oil, ethanol. One of the techs added ethanol to the antibiotic instead of water. And we were all flabbergasted as how the mistake could have occurred because all the solvents are 1. Of different size, 2. Of different label color, and 3. Identified in huge letters. We identified the tech guilty of that mistake and they couldn't even say how that error occurred. A guy was using the overhead crane in a machine shop I worked in. It had 2 hooks on it. One was raised right to the roof. The other was lowered and beside another guy's machine. The guy using the crane was looking at the hook by the roof and mobilized the crane. He was wearing earmuffs and the shop is loud AF, so when he started almost killing everyone in the line of machines with the other hook, he couldn't hear the rest of us screaming. The hook almost threw the first guy into his lathe, hit the next guy's toolboard, flipped over to the side he was on, almost put him into his lathe. Rinse and repeat for the next 3 machines. When it bounced over the last one, it grabbed the A-frame that held all the bar stock and started lifting 30 to 40 t of steel off the ground. Someone finally made it to him and slapped the controls out of his hands. That was his last day at that job. I work on a production line that builds aluminum trailers. I told the new guy to cut me a sheet of aluminum for the roof, 12.5 feet long. When he came back, I went to roll the roof out and it rolled all the way across the trailer, over the front, down to the ground. Almost took out a trimmer and then continued to roll out another 15 feet or so. He was demoted to prep duty that day, lol. I worked at a marine mammal rescue center for a few months in Alaska. Overall a good time. But the job was far nastier than I could have ever imagined. Even despite the warnings. We were warned several times in training to make sure to never breathe in. When approaching a sea lion from the front, their breath will knock you out. And they belch a lot. We kind of laughed and thought it was funny. But he assured us it's no laughing matter. Well, one day, my first week, I found out the hard way. Was breathing casually. Took a sea lion belch to the face. And, yeah, instant vomit. Took me 20 minutes to recover. Shut down a critical file server. Then lied about it. Even after he was presented with the logs that showed it was his user account. That initiated the shutdown. It's not so much the mistake that he made, but it was when he lied about making the mistake. That was a rookie move. Had to tell someone like 10 times that you can't just sell someone flea treatment for dogs in. Tell them they can use it on a cat. Final straw was me hearing them trying to sell Advantix to a cat owner. Spoiler: Advantix is highly toxic to cats.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Haircast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.